Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it.
The house was silent, save for the occasional creak of the floorboards under my hurried steps. My father's voice still echoed in my ears, sharp, cutting words that had slammed into me like a storm. "Get out, Kevin. You think you can do whatever you want under my roof? Think again." I had hesitated then, standing frozen in the doorway of the kitchen. My mother's eyes had been fixed on the linoleum floor, her hands trembling as they gripped the edge of the counter. She didn't say a word, not to him, not to me. I'd waited for her to intervene, to tell him he was overreacting. But the silence dragged on and it was deafening. "Mom," my voice had cracked, half pleading. "Are you really going to let this happen?" She looked up at me and for a moment, I thought I saw her mouth twitch like she wanted to speak, but she didn't. She just turned away, her face pale and drawn. That was the moment it became real. No one was going to stop him. No one was going to stop me from being pushed out into the cold. I stormed up the stairs to my room, adrenaline pumping through my veins. My mind raced as I grabbed my backpack and shoved in whatever clothes I could fit. A hoodie, a couple of t-shirts, my worn-out sneakers. My hands trembled as I zipped it shut. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be real. Yet, as I looked around the room one last time, I knew it was. I felt the weight of finality settle deep in my chest. Back downstairs, the front door loomed like a gate to another world. My father was still in the kitchen, muttering under his breath. My mother stood by the sink, her back turned to me. As I reached for the doorknob, I heard a small voice from behind. "Kevin." It was Alex, my little brother. His head peeked around the corner of the hallway, his face pale and eyes wide with confusion. "Where are you going?" I swallowed hard, forcing a smile I didn't feel. "Just taking a break, Alex. Don't worry about it." "Are you coming back?" His voice wavered. I glanced at him, then at our parents who still hadn't turned around. "I'll see you soon, okay? Take care of yourself." His brow furrowed, but he nodded slowly. "Okay." I stepped outside, and the night air hit me like a slap. It was cold and sharp, stinging my face as I walked toward my van parked at the curb. The Chevy Astro was old, battered, but it was mine. I climbed in, slamming the door shut behind me. For a moment, I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel and staring at the house. The porch light flickered once and then went out, leaving the street in darkness. As I turned the key and the engine sputtered to life, I realized I didn't know where I was going. All I knew was that I couldn't stay. The only thing ahead of me was the unknown, and it terrified me. But it also felt strangely liberating. With a deep breath, I shifted into drive and pulled away, the house disappearing in the rearview mirror. The morning after that freezing October night, I woke up in my van behind the Walmart parking lot, stiff and disoriented. My stomach growled, reminding me I hadn't eaten since the argument. With barely $40 in my pocket, I knew it wouldn't last. I drove to a nearby diner, one of those old places with a neon sign that buzzed faintly. The waitress behind the counter, a middle-aged woman with a warm smile, noticed me lingering after ordering just a coffee. "Rough morning?" she asked, setting the cup in front of me. Something like that, I muttered, avoiding her gaze. She tilted her head slightly as if trying to read me. "Name's Donna. You need work? We're always short on dishwashers." It wasn't ideal, but I nodded. "Yeah, I do. Kevin." Donna handed me an apron and directed me to the back. "Start now and we'll settle up at the end of your shift. Don't expect it to be glamorous." Hours blurred into each other as I scrubbed greasy plates and pans, my hands red and raw from the hot water. When the diner closed at midnight, Donna handed me a $20 bill. "You've got grit, kid. Come back tomorrow if you're up for it." I returned to my van exhausted but relieved. Over the next few weeks, I fell into a routine. Days at the diner, nights in the van. I learned which parking lots were safe, which gas stations didn't mind if I lingered to charge my phone. One night, a knock on my van window startled me. An older man with a gray beard stood outside. "You new to this life?" he asked. His voice was gruff, but not unkind. "Name's Charlie. Been living out here a while. Thought I'd check if you're doing okay." We talked for a while. He gave me tips on staying safe, like keeping a towel over the windows to prevent condensation from giving me away. "You'll learn quick," he said, tapping the van's door. "Just don't let the loneliness eat you up." Loneliness became my fiercest enemy, but survival didn't leave much room for anything else. Each day sharpened my instincts, made me tougher. It wasn't the life I wanted, but it was mine now. The tiny room I rented a month later at the back of a mechanic shop was a sanctuary and a prison. It smelled of oil and burnt rubber, and the walls were so thin I could hear the hum of the machinery from dawn till dusk. But it was warm and I could lock the door, a luxury I'd learned not to take for granted. I worked tirelessly, juggling shifts at the diner and a gas station down the road. The exhaustion was unrelenting, but it felt purposeful. Every dollar saved brought me closer to something more permanent. One evening, as I wiped down the counters at the diner, Donna, my manager, approached me. "You're burning the candle at both ends, kid," she said, her voice tinged with concern. "I'll rest when I have a place to call my own," I replied, avoiding her gaze. Donna's sharp eyes softened for a moment, but she didn't press further. She understood more than she let on. Months turned into years. Every spare moment was spent researching foreclosures and learning basic repairs from YouTube. Finally, I found it, a tiny dilapidated house with peeling paint and a sagging roof. It was barely more than a shed, but it was mine. Signing those papers felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. The first night in my new home, I sat on the dusty floor, surrounded by silence. The emptiness was overwhelming, but it was a blank canvas. I rolled up my sleeves and got to work. The nights were long and the tasks endless. Patching drywall, painting walls, replacing floorboards. My hands bled, my back ached, but each improvement was a step towards something real. One night, Charlie, an old friend from my van days, stopped by. "You're a homeowner now." "Never thought I'd see the day," he joked, handing me a six-pack of cheap beer. I laughed, wiping sweat from my brow. Neither did I, but here I am. Charlie glanced around the half-renovated space. "You've come a long way, Kevin. Don't forget that." His words lingered as I worked late into the night. The house wasn't just a structure. It was proof of my resilience. But even as I painted over the scars of its past, I couldn't shake the feeling that my journey was far from over. The weight of my family's absence loomed, a shadow that refused to fade. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the knock came. I wasn't expecting anyone, but the sound carried a weight that made my chest tighten. I set down my wrench, wiped my hands on my jeans, and approached the door. Through the peephole, I saw them, my mom clutching her purse, my dad standing rigidly behind her, and Alex, his eyes darting nervously, barely recognizable from the boy I'd left behind. I opened the door slowly. "Ryan," my mom said softly, her voice tentative. "Can we come in?" Every instinct told me to slam the door, but Alex's wide, pleading eyes stopped me. I stepped aside and they filed in, awkwardly surveying the small house I'd worked so hard to rebuild. "You've done well for yourself," my dad remarked, his tone laced with something between approval and condescension. I didn't reply. Instead, I watched as they made themselves at home. My mom settling on the couch, my dad inspecting the kitchen, and Alex standing awkwardly near the door. Finally, my mom spoke. It's some hard times," she admitted, her voice trembling. "We lost the house. We just need somewhere to stay for a little while." I folded my arms, leaning against the wall. "How long is a little while?" 2 weeks, she said quickly, glancing at my dad. He nodded, though his tight jaw betrayed his discomfort with asking for help. I hesitated, my gaze shifting to Alex. He stood silent, his hands shoved deep into his hoodie pockets. 2 weeks, I said firmly. "No more." My dad's face darkened, but he said nothing. Alex's shoulders relaxed slightly, and my mom exhaled in relief. "Thank you, Ryan, really." But as I watched them settle in, a nagging unease crept in. This wasn't going to be as simple as I hoped. The days after my ultimatum passed like a slow, grinding storm. Tension clung to the air in the house, each word exchanged between us sharp as broken glass. My father's scowls had turned colder, my mother's pleas quieter, and Alex had become a shadow, drifting through the chaos with his head down. It was on the 12th night, 2 days before they were supposed to leave, that the dam finally broke. I came home late from work, exhausted, to find the living room wrecked. My thrifted couch was pushed against the wall, a chair overturned, and a half-empty beer can rested on the coffee table. My father stood in the middle of the mess, arms crossed, his face a mask of defiance. "We're not going anywhere," he declared. "You don't get to decide that." I shot back, my voice trembling but firm. "This is my home." "Your home?" He stepped closer, his towering frame looming over me. "You think you're better than us now? You don't know the first thing about family." "Family!" I laughed bitterly. Family doesn't throw their kids out into the cold. Family doesn't come crawling back only to tear down what's been built. Alex appeared in the hallway then, his hoodie drawn tight around his face. "Stop it," he said quietly. "Just stop." "Alex," I said, softening, "you don't have to get involved. Go to your room." "No," he snapped, his voice breaking. "I'm sick of this. I'm sick of all of you pretending this can be fixed." He turned to our parents, tears glinting in his eyes. You lied to me. You made me hate him. And for what? To cover your mistakes? The room fell silent. My father's mouth opened as if to speak, but closed again. My mother looked away, her hands trembling. Alex, I started, but he cut me off. I'm staying here, he said firmly. With Kevin, you can figure out the rest. The finality in his voice stunned all of us. My parents left the next morning, their car pulling out of the driveway in a cloud of quiet defeat. For the first time in years, the house felt still. Alex and I stood by the front door, watching the taillights disappear. You sure about this? I asked him. Yeah, he replied, his voice steady. I'm sure. It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was ours. Together, we began to rebuild not just the house, but the trust and the life we both deserved.
Friends, what do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you tomorrow.